Double toilet rubber.
I was waiting to see if it would happen.
Say your part, Amanda.
I don't know. I haven't done that monologue in like 8 years.
It's literally 5 words.
Fire and something? Boy, I don't know.
This is painful.
I don't know.
Warning. The topics discussed on this podcast are subject to adult themes and languages. We seek to unravel the unexplained and unknown. This is Encounters.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Encounters. My name's Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
And today is Halloween! Woo! Yes, we're bringing you Encounters early this week to help celebrate All Hallows Eve.
You know what, Dakota? I think Halloween's my favorite holiday ever.
Oh yeah, Amanda?
You know what? I actually did see this really funny College Humor video talking about like a guy who really likes Halloween. He kept calling himself like a freak because he loved Halloween, and the girl's like, no, that's really normal. A lot of people like Halloween. He's like, no, I'm so freaky. It's real funny. You should watch it.
Okay. I mean, I actually have to admit, I do absolutely love Halloween.
I keep Halloween decorations up all year round.
I have a spooky Halloween room.
Yeah. Spooky
Halloween room! One of my favorite Halloween movies to watch is Halloween Town.
Oh.
I fucking love Halloween Town.
I do too. I wish there was a Halloween Town.
There is a Halloween Town.
I know that little town like sets it up every year, huh?
I thought it was the set. It was like the town they built for Halloween Town, and they like all like do Halloween Town at Halloween.
That's probably true.
I want to buy that little town.
Oh, I also heard Salem is an interesting place to go for Halloween.
Ooh, I bet it is. Halloween is currently what we celebrate with kids going door to door asking for candy, and adults going out and getting completely fucked up in really slutty ass costumes that are amazing.
Yee. Yes.
I don't know. I feel weird.
It's true. It is. That's what Halloween has become. And to hear where it comes from and to see what it's kind of become is kind of crazy.
That is true. I mean, I still have very fond memories of Halloween. I mean, what I plan to do this year's Halloween, I'm playing D&D and then staying up until the witching hours and maybe doing a little RuneScaping.
Ooh.
With some incense while watching the new Sabrina.
Noise.
And it's also on a Wednesday, so I'm gonna probably be dressed like a witch already.
Right. It's just gonna be you on a Wednesday.
Right?
It's my day off, but I'm not gonna do anything, so I'm not gonna be cool this year.
In the Christian culture, Halloween has many different names. It's known as Halloween, All Hallows Eve, All Saints Eve, and is even a part of the All Hallowtide within the liturgical year, wherein the Christian Catholic faith gives praise to their martyrs and saints and religious figures.
Yes. Dead ones, right? Or all of them.
Yeah.
No, it's all of them.
But when you trace the origin roots all the way back for Halloween, you find a more Celtic pagan.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, isn't that funny? It's like the X-ray. It's like those books where you like lift the things up and you look at all the different things underneath the other transparency. You're just like, oh look, Christianity. Oh, what's that?
Oh, pagans? Is that pagans I see?
Is it a witch? That's a witch. What?
Right? Yeah. Halloween. If you go back about 2,000 years maybe. It comes from the Celtic festival Samhain, and this normally marks the day, like the end of summer and the end of harvest, and it kind of was the beginning of, winter, and it's dark and cold.
The dark times.
Yeah, and for them, this was like their new year. So when they celebrated Samhain, it was like the end of the new year, or the end of the year. It was a really, really important time because, like we said, it gets dark and cold, and if they didn't have a good harvest, they knew that death would kind of come to follow. So they say on this night they believed that the barriers between the worlds of the living and dead were blurred. So that means like ghosts could walk the earth. Also, humans could go to the other side, and they got scared that humans would get stuck in the other side and get lost over there. Into addition of ghosts coming into the world, they would also cause a lot of troubles, damaging crops. And Celtics also believed that with the other world, the barrier being so thin, they could see into the future and make predictions. What they would do is they would build a giant bonfire, just one giant bonfire, and everyone would gather around, and this is when the Celtic priest would make their predictions, and these were very important to kind of provide comfort and direction during these long dark winters. And people would also throw in like burn crops and animals to sacrifice to their deities, and they also wore costumes, normally animal heads or animal skins, and that was used to help them kind of predict the future and things like that. And I think it was also later to blend in with kind of the creepy crawlies of the night, but we'll talk about that later.
Well, yeah, because with this thinning veil during Samhain, you also get what the Celts would call fairies that would float in and out of the realm. And it's with these fairies and other AOCs that we get the tradition of paying tribute to and making offerings to. Like, people would sacrifice their livestock in the winter, like you said, but they would also leave offerings of food and drink. Portions of their crop at the end of the harvest were left outside for them. And it was said that the souls of the dead would return home seeking comfort and offerings and hospitality.
Yeah.
It was like a family reunion, these sequences for the pagans.
And that actually would spread. By 43 AD, the Roman Empire had started to conquer these territories. And they would actually start to combine with the Samhain festivals. Like, they would have bonfires and they would have parties to kind of remember their dead. And the Christians actually had this
evil little takeover.
Oh, no. That's what I was going to say.
That's what it is.
Well, the Christians actually had their own tradition of
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes, they had their own. They had their own tradition of like La Moraa. What was it? La Mora. So this was on May 13th, and that was their day where they would honor their dead. And a lot of times they would pour milk on graves to kind of, satisfy their dead from coming up and coming at them. They ended up actually, Pope Gregory III had the day moved from May 13th to November 1st, which was right after Samhain, and that's when it started turning into All Hallows Eve, because November 1st became like their saint day, All Saints Day, and that's what All Hallows kind of means in this like old English. All Hallowmas means All Saints Day, so Samhain became All Hallows Eve. And they would still have bonfires, they would still have parades, they would still dress up. It was just a giant festival that the Christians kind of incorporated into their calendar.
Right, because what they were doing at the time was a slow cultural trend, like absorption. What they did with the Samhain festival was they came in and eventually added a full 3 days, because November 2nd is All Souls Day.
Yes.
So they wanted to give the pagans something that mirrored their religion while still being subjugated under their god.
Yeah.
It feels so weird to say.
And it's interesting because even with like the devil's thing, pagans normally worship a god with horns. So their god became Christians' devils. Just throwing that out there. But along with the All Saints Day parade in England, citizens would actually go around and beg for food, and that's where they would go door to door. And the church started encouraging people to hand out soul cakes because when someone dies and they're not, saved, their souls go to purgatory, and purgatory is kind of like the first level of hell. You're not in hell, but it's kind of like a waiting room. In this belief, like the more prayers you get for this soul, the more likely they'll get to go up to heaven. So with these soul cakes, the poor would go door to door and ask for food, and they would give them these cakes. They were kind of traded for prayers for these damned souls. And eventually the kids would take this up, and they would go, door to door asking for food, money. And that's kind of like the old-timey trick-or-treating.
Yeah, and we would see this replicated again in another English custom known as Guy Fawkes Day, which is also November 5th, which is remembered because of the rebellious Guy Fawkes who was trying to blow up the Parliament building in a political attack. And children would run through the streets begging for coins or providing trickeries.
Yes, they would have a lot of big bonfires because I think after he was hung, his body was cut up into pieces and thrown into fires, right?
Who?
Guy Fawkes. And that's why they would make giant bonfires and cause mayhem because Guy Fawkes, like Dakota said, caused mayhem.
But it's not until the late 19th century that we get this term guising, or going out in false faces, which is what would become going out in costume. We'd see people in Scotland and Ireland during Halloween starting to dress up in costume.
And they were still going door to door asking for food and money, but they were becoming more violent, so they started wearing masks to cover up their identity. That was one kind of reason they started wearing masks. Yeah.
The first actually recorded trick-or-treating that happened was in 1895 in Scotland, where people would go around disguised, carrying lanterns made of scooped out turnips, asking for fruit, cake, and money. The first actually recorded trick-or-treating with children in costume was in 1911 in Kingston, Ontario, Canada.
Get it, Canada.
The third reference to trick-or-treating was Chicago in 1920. But it's actually not what you would think about trick-or-treating now. The way we think the way we see trick-or-treating now is so different than where it actually came from.
Yeah, because with Halloween coming to America, it was kind of a slow start because the Puritans did not want anything to do with the supernatural or anything like that. So they really did not want Halloween to be celebrated. But in the more rural areas, it was celebrated. They would still do the same festivals.
Yes, it's specifically in this post-Civil War era where the Scottish and the Irish immigrants come to America that we start getting this more Gaelic tradition of different ways of respecting the dead, other than just close casket and throw it away.
Yeah. Modern day trick-or-treating is only about 80 years old. Before then, Halloween was a really dark celebration.
Yeah. There's a really, really dark little story that comes out of these Irish folklore tales about a jack-o'-lantern man. Amanda, would you like to hear the story?
Sure.
It comes from ancient Celtic culture in Ireland. The original jack-o'-lanterns weren't carved from pumpkins. They were originally carved from turnips, and they are terrifying looking. If you are curious, Google what these turnip jack-o'-lanterns look like. The original story dates hundreds of years back in Irish lore, but it's the story of Stingy Jack and the jack-o'-lantern. Stingy Jack was a miserable old drunk who took pleasure in playing tricks on just about everyone. Family, friends, his mother, and even the devil himself. One day, he tricked the devil into climbing up an apple tree. After the devil climbed up the tree, Stingy Jack hurriedly placed crosses around the tree trunk. Unable to touch the cross, the devil was stuck in the tree. Stingy Jack made the devil promise him not to take his soul when he died. Once the devil promised not to take his soul, Stingy Jack removed the crosses and the devil climbed down out of the apple tree. Many years later, Jack died. He went to the pearly gates of heaven and was told by St. Peter that he was mean and cruel and had led a miserable, worthless life on earth. Stingy Jack was not allowed to enter heaven. He was then thrown down to hell and to the devil. The devil kept his promise and would not allow him to enter hell. Now, Jack was scared. He had nowhere to go but to wander about forever in the dark with no light. The devil tossed him an ember from the flames of hell to help Stingy Jack light his way. Jack had a turnip with him. It was one of his favorite foods, and he always carried one with him. Jack hollowed out the turnip and placed the ember the devil gave him inside the turnip. From that day onward, Stingy Jack roamed the earth without a resting place, lighting his way as he went with his jack-o'-lantern. A lot of people say that the actual jack-o'-lanterns that we see, the Irish would hollow out turnips and rutabagas and gourds and potatoes and beets and make these weird freaky heads with coals inside to keep evil spirits at bay and to keep Stingy Jack away from their house. And then when they got here to America, they were like, ooh, look at these pumpkins. These are easy.
Right.
This right here. And from that day on, pumpkins became the essential jack-o'-lantern thing. Yeah. But what I didn't know is there's lots of other different stories about where jack-o'-lanterns come from. Of course, we have the Stingy Jack story that I just told you. But there's also all the Celtic lore, specifically, even without the Stingy Jack story, that talks about gourds being used to ward off evil from your home. There's also tidbit from the 19th century about jack-o'-lanterns, which is why they have the hollowed-out carved pumpkin originating from pranks. It said in the 19th century that the pumpkin was readily available to young pranksters who could make scary-ass faces in these bodies, and that they would use them at night to scare people. And then...
Right!
What?
When they put them on a stick and, put them in the window?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Imagine. Especially if you lived on, if you had a second floor and all of a sudden...
But they say it's because people would run around doing shit like that. I mean, if one of those turnips popped up in my fucking window, I would not be living there anymore.
I know, right?
I would be like, I'm too scared to live here now.
Jesus.
But it's shit like that with the jack-o'-lantern that we see in the 19th century that leads us to what is known as Hell Night, or the Beggar's Night, or fucking Demon Night, or Satan's Night, or what the Christians would deem as Hell Night. I know I said that first.
I liked you went full circle. Actually, I really liked that. I just wasn't expecting you to say Christ. I just wasn't expecting that. I'm sorry.
Christians!
Right? You're like, Christians would deem that shit Hell Night. I'm sorry. Yeah.
This is what trick-or-treating became.
Right? Because kids would be little fuckers.
Kids were known to start smashing windows, setting buildings on fire. There was even a case here in Chicago where kids were putting soap bars in railways and causing derailments, causing major accidents and multiple injuries.
They also would take apart people's like carriages and put them back together on their roofs.
It also got the nickname Gate Night because out in the rural parts of America, it was known that tricksters would steal the gates off of livestock pens and all your animals would just run around.
And this was kind of big in the 20s and 30s, right? Because we were already going through a Great Depression, and then these kids weren't helping because they were like then destroying things.
Yeah, and a lot of people try and say it's like an outlet for them because they needed some kind of way to get it out and to get some. And it's like, okay, yeah, but no.
Yeah, it's the original Purge.
Yeah, exactly. But there is this shift in 1915 where corporations and like other people in America decide that they want to start trying to move Halloween from a dark past and from Hell Night to a more social event, a more family-oriented event. And it's in 1915 that we start getting Dennison's Bogey Book, which gives us the social shift in atmosphere.
And they were the ones who kind of started making like the paper costumes and like really, is that corporate? Making Halloween more corporate, making money off of it.
Yeah. But it wasn't until the 1930s that we actually start getting the real shift away from the Hell Night. There's actually a case in Des Moines, Iowa, where it's the city in America that did the most to try and deter youth from committing crimes on Halloween. And it goes back to this woman named Catherine Krieg, who was a director of recreation in the Des Moines Playground Commission. Mm-hmm. And in 1938, she decided that we've got to do more than just say, they're just angry boys. There's nothing wrong with that. She's like, there is something wrong with that. And she set aside October 30th as Beggars Night, wherein the kids could go door to door throughout the community, ring the doorbell, and the houses would give everyone candy, almost supplicating them, like, hey, here's some candy, don't fuck up my house. And the kids were like, right? Oh my god, that's great, thank you, I love this, I will for sure want this.
Right?
But this council, like, also urged the kids, like, they had to give some kind of trick to get treated. Like, they had to perform a song, or a stunt, or a musical number. But it trickle-down system just became ding-dong, trick-or-treat.
Yeah. Either I'm gonna fuck up your house, or you're gonna give me some candy.
Yeah, exactly. But it continued forever. Like, that's just one small case. A lot of other cases go on to say that in the 1940s, at the end of World War II, Halloween hit another major hit because we ended the sugar ration because of the war, and candy became readily available. And once candy was introduced, besides homemade treats like popcorn balls or candied apples, once you started getting like the Mr. Good bars and the fucking Hershey bars and all of the actual sweets, Halloween just skyrocketed. And once kids had enough candy, they were like, oh fuck, I don't want to fuck up your house, I want to go home and eat my candy.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's kind of where it turned from being scared to go out at night and trying to like offer the dead to like, please leave me alone. You kind of had to like bribe kids to not mess up your house. That's when Halloween did a flip.
And eventually it just continues to metamorphosize into this more family-oriented event. All of a sudden, the costumes shift from scary to blend in with the demons that walk the earth to your favorite TV show character. And instead of offering children candy not to fuck up your house, you're doing it because you feel obligated to. I mean, whatever.
It turned into like a thing.
A whole thing.
And it also was like, back in the day, how you got a husband too, right?
Yeah, no, Halloween was one of the more social events. It was one of the best times to find a mate. Still is,
Right?
in my opinion.
Hey, Halloween. I'm sorry.
But the next major shift we kind of see in the cultural aspect, the thing that really solidifies it in the pop culture spectrum is when it appears in the Charlie Brown comic of The Great Pumpkin. Or at least in my opinion. Because that's when it brought it into the home of America. It made it child safe for sure. Even though The Great Pumpkin kind of scares the fuck out of me, but whatever. But we also see it again in the cultural phenomenon of Halloween the movie.
Killing babysitters.
Yeah. Amanda, you're a big fan of Halloween, aren't you?
I am. It's Michael Myers is my favorite.
I don't know anything about those movies.
Ugh, so good.
Are you excited about the new one?
I'm excited about the new one, but we'll see. And it's funny, if you watch the first Halloween, there are so many jack-o'-lanterns. They put an obscene amount of jack-o'-lanterns in that movie. Just sidebar.
Why? Do you think it's because they were trying to ward off evil?
Maybe.
It didn't work, it looks like.
I don't remember, but there is like a crazy amount of jack-o'-lanterns in this movie.
I heard that mask is just a William Shatner mask.
Yeah, that's painted, spray painted, white. Sometimes it has eyebrows though, and that really upsets me. I was looking at like all the different masks from all the different Michael movies, and I was like, who had the eyebrows? They were not on fleek, bitch.
Most mask eyebrows are not on fleek.
Remember Batman with the nipples?
Oh, I cannot. Val Kilmer with them nipples. Well, Amanda brought it up earlier, so let's bring it up again. Corporate America snuck on in here to Halloween, and candy became king. There was a report done, and it said that Americans collectively will buy 600 million tons of Halloween candy at a total of $1.9 billion this year.
Oh my god. That is so much.
That estimates that every family household will spend at least $44 on Halloween candy.
I'm not going to spend anything on Halloween candy. I'm sorry.
The National Retail Federation expects households this year to spend somewhere between $79 and $80 on this holiday.
Oh my god.
Right?
I'm sorry. That's an insane amount of money.
I mean, I can tell it though, because all year round the candy's like $5 for a bag of candy, and I was in the Halloween aisle last weekend, and a bag of Reese's is like $15.
Of course you'd be getting Reese's.
And let me tell you, on November 1st, that $15 bag of candy is going to be $3, and I'm going to buy 4 of them.
Right?
Speaking of Reese's, what do you think the 5 top candies in America are at Halloween?
Definitely Reese's.
Reese's is one.
Probably Hershey's.
Nope.
Butterfinger?
Nope.
Is it chocolate or is it like all candies?
It's different candies. They're name brands though.
Maybe like Nerds?
Nope.
I remember getting a lot of Nerds.
It's Skittles, Starburst,
Oh yeah.
Reese's Peanut
M&Ms?
Butter Cups, Kit Kats, and Twix.
Ooh. Twix?
Yep.
Really?
Those are the most 5 liked candy brands on Facebook for Halloween.
M&M's is not on there?
No, M&M's are M&M's, gummy bears, candy corn, and Snickers are among the most Googled candies during Halloween.
Really? People just looking at
Yeah.
it?
They did a survey of 2/3 of American children, and 75% of the kids said that they liked the holiday because they got to go trick-or-treating.
I mean, yeah. My favorite part.
There was also another survey done, and this is the most important survey. 90% of parents surveyed admitted to stealing their children's trick-or-treat candy while looking through it.
Of course.
This study was also really interesting because it tried to determine an age when it's appropriate to stop trick-or-treating. What age do you think it was?
27.
13.
Nah, I think 16. Let those kids trick or treat till they're 16.
Let them trick-or-treat till they're dead.
Shoot.
Not children. I mean, you'd be old by that point. I mean, like, trick-or-treat until you die of old age.
So you're an adult. Threatening kids with trick or
I
treating.
know, right?
You trick or treat till you die.
But by far, one of the more interesting parts of this holiday are the taboos that lie behind it. And one of the ones that's always bothered me is this idea of tainted candy. You know, the urban myth that there's going to be razors in the apples, or that there'll be cyanide in the pixie sticks.
Or they'll give you edible marijuana.
But Joel Best, who's a professor at the University of Delaware, says that there's absolutely no cases that exist where a child has actually been harmed by someone they didn't know, by a stranger giving them candy. But I did dig a little deeper into why America has this idea about poisoned candy. And that led me to the case of Ronald Clark O'Brien. And now, Ronald Clark O'Brien was a serial killer or a murderer in 1974 who tried to murder a group of 5 children, 2 of them being his own son and daughter, on Halloween in 1974 with cyanide pixie sticks. Now, it's said that he took them trick-or-treating that night. They went to a house and nobody answered the door, and he told them to go ahead and go on to the next house. And then he came up to them at the next house with 5 pixie sticks. He gave them out to the children, and they continued to go about trick-or-treating. Well, later that night when they were at home, his son wanted to eat some of his candy, grabbed a pixie stick, and swallowed it. Having issues getting some of the powder out, he went over to his father and asked his father to help him, and O'Brien broke down the powder inside and helped his son take the cyanide. He was then rushed to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, his son died. He was hoping that the other children would ingest their pixie sticks, but none of the other children did, and the police got a hold of it and found out what he had done, took him to jail, and put him to death. There's also a case of a family that was trying to cover up their child's poisoning because their kid got into his uncle's heroin collection and ate that thinking it was candy, and so they tried to sprinkle the heroin on the Halloween candy and say that a stranger had given him poisoned candy.
Yeah.
I gotta do that. I gotta ruin it for all of us.
Right? Like, you never just got to go home and eat your candy. Your parents always had to check it and then would steal it.
90%. 90%. There's also other taboos, though, like black cats. Amanda, did you know that the reason we're scared of black cats, apparently the superstition is if a black cat crosses your path, it's bad luck, right? Mm-hmm. Well, apparently that stems from the Dark Ages, where people believed that black cats were familiars of witches. Mm-hmm. And familiars are demonic spirits that take the form of animals to help witches in their dastardly deed. It's also noted in a medieval myth that Satan himself would appear as a cat to socialize with witches.
Yeah.
But there's also been a reversal of fortune for black cats, and now in Ireland, Scotland, and England, it's actually considered good luck to have them cross your path.
Yeah. Black cats are cute.
Bats are also seen as taboo for this same reason, to be familiars with witches.
Yes.
Also, as Amanda mentioned, during Samhain there would be these giant bonfires. And with these bonfires, it would stir up bugs because they didn't have regular lights like we have lights now. So any light creation in the dark would attract bugs, and bats loved bugs. So they would swoop into these fires and eat these bugs. And the way it looked in the shadows was almost like spirits were flying around these flames.
Yeah.
So bats became synonymous with evil spirits in the night. It was also said that if a bat was spotted flying around your home 3 times, that it meant someone in the house would die soon. It was also said that if a bat flies into your home on Halloween, it was a sign that the house was haunted because ghosts let the bat in.
I remember hearing about why we see ghosts with the sheets over them.
Ooh, why?
Because you know when someone was buried back then, they would have their shroud placed over them. So if they were coming back from the dead, they would still have their shroud. And so that's why we have ghosts with the sheet over them. Yeah. It's a shroud.
The original colors for Halloween, black and orange, actually stem from pagan roots as well. Orange being the color of harvest, and black being the scheme of death and the end of summer.
Yes, and dark. They didn't like going out at night.
There's something about candy apples that are, like, important, right?
Well,
Apples specifically, anyways.
yeah, because you know I can't pronounce names, Dakota.
Pomona?
Yes, she was a Roman goddess, and she was of fruit and trees, and her symbol was apples. So apples started becoming really big in kind of the Halloween culture.
Specifically during Samhain with the Romans, who like to cover them in a sugary sap.
Yes. Also, bobbing for apples was like the first girl to successfully bob for an apple was the next to be married.
The most experienced to find true love or something like that too, right?
Yeah. Sure she was.
And if they kept trying, it was like they were too fickle and would never find love.
Which is so sad. Oh my god.
They also say that if you like successfully bobbed an apple and put it under your pillow after Halloween, you would dream about your future husband.
They did a lot of stuff to find their future husband.
A lot.
Like, if you peeled the apple and it fell a certain way, it could be the initials for your husband.
One of the most iconic Halloween candies, I'd have to say, is probably candy corn. And it has an origin story that's a little interesting. It was invented in the late 1880s and wasn't mass-produced until the 1900s. But it's just a bunch of syrup and was originally tried to be marketed as chicken feed. It was a candy called chicken feed because it looked like corn kennels. But people in America didn't want to buy corn kennels because at the time, everyone was using wheat for everything. And so corn was thought to be more lower class and whatnot. But then we went on a ration for the war, and everybody started realizing that we could use corn for so many different things, and then it just took off. So it was a huge hit after that and remains a huge hit to this day, and I don't know why. I hate candy corn.
I don't know. I don't think I've met one person who actually eats candy corn.
I try every year, and I just end up not eating it.
Right. Is that Halloween?
Yeah, that's Halloween, guys. I mean, there's so much more to Halloween, but
Yes.
This is what we wanted to focus on and bring to you guys. This is my favorite holiday. I hope you guys have a wonderful Halloween today. Get out there. Don't do Hell Night.
But make some bad decisions.
Do you? And all of you, I'm going to be playing D&D and then watch American Horror Story and probably pray with my ancestors.
Right? I'm gonna, do the same. Not play D&D, though.
Join us next week when we talk about the Bell Witch. It's going to be another spooky, haunting story. I believe it's a poltergeist, isn't it, Amanda?
Yeah, I think it's a poltergeist.
This should be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be our second one since Infield.
Excited to bring you another case that's non-Warrens.
Not the Warrens.
So, look forward to that.
Yeah.
If you like what you hear, please like us and follow us on Facebook at Encounters of Paranormal Experience. You can also find us on Instagram at Encounters of Paranormal. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Libsyn, Pocket Podcasts.
Anywhere you can get a podcast.
Literally, I'm checking FM Player. You can find us wherever. Type in, go to Google, put, quote, Encounters of Paranormal Experience, end quote, everything is us.
And please, if you like us and you have an iTunes account, a rating, a review would be awesome.
We love you forever.
Please. Forever.
Many thanks to our fans that are reaching out to us from all over the world. Your comments and your messages have it's just wonderful to hear. We love feedback. We love hearing from you. So thank you so very much. Shout out to you guys.
Yeah, and feel free to
continue doing so.
Reach out. Yeah, we love it.
And until next week, I'm Dakota.
I'm Amanda.
Stay spooky. And happy Halloween!
Ooh.